Welcome to onSodi.com.
Workflow is the way we go about doing things. We have a workflow in Photoshop. Just like any other activity, we have our own workflows as to how we do things, how we turn on a computer, check our emails, check our social media, and all the other things that you do. Processing and editing digital photographs has many workflows. There is a main, overall global approach, and within each step, there are also smaller workflows. As we progress through the video course, be sure to watch the guided learning videos for updates and advice on workflow. Maintaining a consistent workflow is very important to the success of using Photoshop and its associated software. The workflow in the current CC version of Photoshop is quite different to the workflow that existed in previous versions from only a few years ago. The workflow in Photoshop is always evolving with each new update. Some new versions of Photoshop had small workflow changes and additions, whereas some other updates introduced substantial changes to the workflow. The global workflow involves three key software components, all of which are part of Photoshop. Adobe Bridge, for viewing and organizing images, plus more. Adobe Camera Raw, also known as ACR, for processing raw files, from basic to advanced. And Photoshop, for image editing and retouching. Within each of these software applications, there are more workflows and variations. It's wise to adhere to the global workflows as much as you can, as it prepares you better for advanced Photoshop. Let's start by looking at the current workflow approach for Adobe Photoshop CC. The main overview workflow of photography in the modern era are as follows. Image capture, the art of taking the photograph. Importing your photographs onto your computer. Viewing and organizing your photographs. Optimizing your photographs. Editing the photographs. And finally, the output. Image capture. We capture our photographs with a camera, and as you know, there are many forms of cameras. You can import your photos to your computer in a number of ways, but after that, you want to view them. Watch the video lessons, importing photos and opening a raw file. Viewing and organizing. Adobe Bridge is perfect for viewing images. You don't have to import your photos to see them in Bridge. Some of you may use Adobe Lightroom, which you can also use to catalog your images, but with Lightroom, you have to import your photos first. It really doesn't matter too much whether you use Adobe Bridge or Adobe Lightroom, but the important thing to remember is that once you have your files imported, you will need to organize your images in one way or another. Watch our video series on Adobe Bridge for more information on importing and organizing your images. The next stage is to optimize your images. This involves manipulating the image data, because after all, digital photographs are just a bunch of computer code and numbers that you can edit indefinitely. The workflow for optimizing your images will be slightly different depending upon the file format that you captured your photographs in. Taking photographs in the RAW format will give the best possible quality that your camera can produce. If your camera cannot capture raw data photographs, then that is still okay, because we can use similar workflows to optimize JPEG images too. RAW files. Use Adobe Camera Raw or Adobe Lightroom to optimize. JPEG files. Use Adobe Camera Raw, Adobe Lightroom or Photoshop. You can use three proven methods for optimizing your images. The best platform, however, is Adobe Camera Raw, and you can still use JPEG with Camera Raw, but be sure to set the Camera Raw preferences to open JPEG files first. Watch the video lesson on Camera Raw preferences if you are not sure how to set this up. You can use Lightroom to optimize your images, but please take note that both Adobe Camera Raw and Lightroom use an identical software process, but the interface of both programs is different. We believe, from years of educating photographers, that Adobe Camera Raw is easier to use. The third platform for optimizing your images is within Adobe Photoshop. Photoshop is the grandmaster for performing editing or retouching to your images, but Photoshop needs a quality image to start with, and that's where we use Camera Raw to get the best starting point. Within each of these 3 software packages, there will be more workflows to follow. The final stage of photography is the output of your photographs, and this can be performed in all of the software packages. Watch the next video lesson, which outlines the 3 image optimizing workflows.